Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. We're going to be talking about the numbers for the previous month, so that would be the recordings in January. We have a great guest coming on the second segment of the show, the new president of the South Shore Realtors, and we usually get the new president on every year. And then we're going to talk about some of our great Plymouth County and Plymouth Colony history. So let's go right to the numbers. As far as deeds go, we got off to a pretty good start in January. 513 deeds recorded, less than the 610 in December, but 24% higher than last year's 414 deeds. 24% up year to date. Our average sale price was $657,612. You get to see an image of 1 month in the calendar year, of all the sales for all 27 communities in Plymouth County, from Abington down to Whitman. As you can see, Plymouth and Brockton are always the highest number, and but every town has sales. So another number to look at when you're looking at the health of the real estate community is the number of mortgages recorded. There were 1,004 mortgages recorded in January, again less than the 1,150 in December of last year, but 23% more than the 816 mortgages in December of the previous year. And year to date, we're up 23%. Since the financial meltdown of 2008, we've always tracked foreclosures very closely. The foreclosure deeds and notices are still very low. They've been very low since COVID, when there was a moratorium in place. So there were only 10 foreclosure deeds in January, one more than the 9 in December, but 36% less than the 16 last January. And the first document we see at the registry is a recording that signifies someone's facing difficulty paying their mortgage is a foreclosure notice. Usually it's based upon non-payment, and usually for a economic or health issue. People find that they can't afford to pay their mortgage. And I always advise people, if you're in trouble, don't hesitate. It happens to many people along the way, but reach out to a federal housing counselor like NeighborWorks to see if they can help you modify your mortgage or help you in another way. So you're also going to see an image of foreclosures in orders of notice for January. As I said before, since the COVID moratorium, there are still a lot of zeros, still a lot of potential foreclosures and orders of notice not going forward. But again, if you're in trouble, reach out. I always want to advise people are concerned about fraud these days. So we offer a free fraud alert at the registry. If you go to our website, PlymouthDeeds.org, and go to resources, you'll see a line called Fraud Alert. You can sign up with your name and your email, and anything that gets recorded against your name, you'll be notified. So if your name is Robert Smith, you might get more than one notification. It may not always be you, but you can check that out and get ahead of it. We record by over the internet with 80% of our regular recorded land and over 50% in our land court. But as always, beware of any scams out there in real estate. For most people, real estate is your most valuable asset, and people will try to take advantage of it. So be alert, pay attention, be vigilant. I have a great guest coming in, the second segment of the show. Mr. Robert Sullivan, the new president of South Shore Realtors. He'll describe the organization and what he sees about Plymouth County real estate going forward. So we'll see you in the next segment. So welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we've always done something educational in nature. We've had surveyors, appraisers, home inspectors, commercial real estate brokers, commercial lenders, but we've always come back to the realtors because they are the people on the ground. And I've always tried to get the new president of the South Shore Realtors to join us on the show. They're a very valuable organization as far as training and promotion of the code of ethics for the Realtors. And I have a guest today, Bob Sullivan. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
Relatively new president of the South Shore Realtors.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the South Shore Realtors?
The South Shore Realtors, we have two offices, one located on Scoosett Street in Pembroke, and I guess you'd call it the main office where the majority of the staff is. Then we have a second office in the Fall River area, the Fall River region, on 580 Easton Avenue. And we do have staff there, and it's also open by appointment. So we cover a large territory, as you might have guessed from the description of where the offices are. So we are in South Shore from, say, Braintree all the way down to the Cape, and then down 24 all the way into Fall River, and actually to Wisset, Rhode Island as well as part of our territory. We have over 3,000 members of realtors and affiliate members, and we strive to service them and the community. We have a vast variety of committees from government affairs to community service, which is extremely active at South Shore Realtors. We do food drives, diaper drives. We're in the community daily, and they do a tremendous job on that committee, serving everyone and finding the needs. We also have a grant program through MAR, which we have achieved. I don't have the numbers. I think we gave out 6 grants from last October's round, and we presented those in January to My Brother's Keeper and such organizations regarding housing and people in need.
So let's talk about the importance of being a realtor, not just a real estate person.
Right. So the difference between a realtor and a licensee is the code of ethics. And we all abide by the code of ethics. We have to take that education every 3 years. Because of some of the committees I serve on, I take it every year. And it sets us apart. So we have, it's very lengthy and details, but rules and regulations, treating everyone fairly, each other and our clients. We are a unique business, and where we cooperate with our competition almost every day. That's just the nature of the business. So in order to become a realtor, you have to take the Code of Ethics course. You have to satisfy that every 3 years. And within that, if you are found to be, if you were another realtor and I thought, well, you didn't do that quite right, I can report that, and they have hearings, there's mediation, there's all sorts of avenues to correct the problem if you want to say it was a problem, whereas in just a sales associate, there's no callback on that. There's no place to go for a seller or a buyer or another agent dealing with them to put them in question and have them get more education.
Yeah, so I know you're well-known, your organization is well-known for its training,
Yes.
and you have to get a certain number of CEUs in a time period?
Right. So in order to, and I've been doing this a long time,
Sure.
33 years. So when I did it, it was a little different.
Yeah.
And to qualify, I think it was 24 hours, and it was a test in the blue book, and you found out a month later. Now it's all computerized. I believe it's 40 hours now for an initial license, and the 12 hours of CEs every 2 years. So now the Board of Registration on licensing is now tracking that. It used to be, did you or didn't you? Now you have to put your course number in and where it was taken. It has to be a certified instructor approved by MAR.
So you mentioned in our previous conversation that this is not your first leadership role. You've been involved in other Realtor organizations.
I have. So South Shore Realtors exists because of a merger of several associations over the years. The last one being the Greater Fall River Association of Realtors, where I was the president when that transition began. We were a very small association of about 300 members. And we were looking to merge because it was very difficult in the climate that we were in with only 300 members and one staff member to meet all of the requirements, all the education, and survive. So we sought out different associations and found that South Shore was the best feel and fit. Fall River is very social and like to do meetings and enjoy each other's companies, and South Shore had the same feeling. So together, we are a great team. Even though we're competitors, we all strive to make life better for all of our members.
So I know you try to keep up on current issues. Laws and regulations change regularly, and I saw that one of your upcoming program is selling property in the flood zones.
Yes.
And that gets complicated because the rules change all the time.
It gets very complicated. The rules change all the time. The insurance companies change what they're charging depending on what zone you're in, and the maps have been changing constantly. Somebody will ask, "Is this house need flood insurance?" Well, a lot of times the answer comes back, well, they don't have a mortgage, so they don't have flood insurance, or their bank doesn't require it. But different banks, once they get to underwriting, may or may not require it. It varies, and one insurance company may call for it, and another one may not. So usually in this business, when we have one in question, we do have a great part of our dues covers the RPR application, and they have overlay flood maps, so we can pull up a property and put the FEMA maps over that to see where it might lie. But ultimately, we want to go to our trusted insurance agent and find out where it lies, if they think it needs insurance or not, because it really, whether I say it does or not based on my maps, one bank, one insurance company could say that it does and the other one not.
So I know Gene Sawtell and the staff at South Shore Realtors keep you busy in your volunteer job,
Yes.
but you are a realtor and you're on the ground working as a realtor. What have you seen in the real estate market over the past 6 months?
I've been very busy personally. It's not an easy market. As I say, I've been doing this for 33 years. I've seen all sorts of markets. But we still have low inventory, and that's largely due to people that have very low mortgage rates not wanting to sell up or sell down and then have a 7.1 mortgage rate. But I think the buyers that haven't owned before, they've adjusted to the new rate. And I try to tell people historically, that's really not a bad rate. When I first bought my house, rates had come down from 18% to below 10, and I could afford to buy a house. That was back in the mid 80s. So relatively speaking, anything between 5 and 7 is a great rate. Going back to the early 60s, rates were at 5%.
I remember when they were very, very, very high.
Right. So, it's all a matter of doing the math and the bottom line. And once you buy a house, you can always refinance if they come down. So that's usually what I advise my client, because once, if you're going to wait for those rates to come back down to 5, guess what? The prices are going to go back up, or be higher.
So it's obviously very concerning to me in what we do that it hasn't been the transition from starter homes to mid-priced homes to higher homes and back to downsizing, because everybody seems to be stuck in place. It's kind of a logjam in a lot of ways. What do you see breaking that? What do you think the main barriers are to getting this market going again?
Well, rates, number one, of course, people have that in their mind because 3% was only like
Right.
3 years ago. So that's still in their mind. But new legislation was just passed on ADUs, which is accessory dwelling units.
Right.
And that may help. And I know some people think everyone's going to be running to put one in to rent it out. And I don't really think that'll happen. I think it might to a small degree. But I think some people may say, my adult children need a bigger house. I don't need this big house. I can build an ADU, move into that, and then they can have my house or buy my house. That may help. And then that younger person may be moving out of the starter. But actually in the last probably 5 or 6 years, I see that a lot of younger people aren't going to starters. They're going for their forever house on the first try. And I think that is large part due to the HGTV shows where they're seeing everything brand new and, not like, you don't see them wanting the starter house where they can put some sweat equity into that and then move on, which is the way I did things when I was younger.
So I've seen some pretty scary surveys from younger people, and many of them don't believe they'll ever own a home. And that is tragedy, because that's where you can build your wealth.
Right.
How do we get first-time home buyers into the market?
Through education, through programs, we've been advocating for the last few years for a savings program where people can save up to $5,000 a year towards a down payment without being taxed on it. We have not had any luck in getting that passed yet, but we are continuing to work on that. That'll really incentivize people to save for that. I see a lot of young people that are really trying to start that at a young age, and then I really haven't run into, personally, a lot of people saying, oh, there's no way I can ever do this.
Right.
They realize that is the way to get ahead, to build wealth and to have stability in the long term.
Great. Yeah, I know the governor's got her plan that includes ADU, easier
Right.
process, and money to first-time home buyers and subsidized rates.
Right.
We'll see how that
Right.
all plays out.
Correct. And there are a lot of banks that offer down payment assistance for first-time home buyers that qualify depending on their income guidelines.
So we're a little bit ahead, but I always like to look forward to the spring market.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any changes coming?
I think we'll see a little bit more coming on the market as far as inventory. I don't think it will change that much, only because we haven't had the winter doldrums in the last 3 years as we used to. There was a time in real estate from Thanksgiving to New Year's, you weren't doing a whole lot.
Right.
Now it's crazy. I was telling someone I was taking an offer on Christmas Eve and presenting it Christmas Day, and never in my 33 years have I ever done that. So it hasn't slowed down. Buyers are still competitive out there. It's still a seller's market, and they really are kind of not letting up because they know they have to have the jump on getting the possibility of getting a home.
Yeah, so we had for many, many years a lot of recordings at the end of the month to try to save interest rates.
Right.
And at the end of the year, it was always a big rush. But I agree with you. The past couple of years, it really hasn't been a big boost in sales at the end of December.
Right. And I know from my appraisal friends and even people that do title work, the refinances are very far down because the rate is higher.
Right.
So there aren't many people that would benefit to go to the higher rate.
So how about a quick 30-second tip to potential buyers out there?
Save, save, save. Don't overspend. Watch your credit. The credit score is very important. The higher your credit score, the better your rate, the easier you will qualify.
And a 30-second tip to sellers?
Have your house ready. Be prepared to move quickly because the market is moving quickly if you have a property to sell. It is a very good time to sell. I've seen this week actually a couple of people that bought in 23 wanting to sell, And the prices are slightly lower, believe it or not, because of the activity then at a higher price point and the rates were lower. So those higher price points may be getting a little less than they were in 23, but be patient. Both sides just need to be patient.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Your organization's a tremendous organization, and I know you'll fit right into your role as president, and hope you get to do both jobs without too much
I
stress.
try. Thank you, John.
Great,
I
thanks
appreciate
for
it.
coming on the show.
No problem.
I want to thank Robert Sullivan for the great job he did in describing his organization. South Shore Realtors is a very important organization. They provide great training to their realtors. They have a very strong code of ethics, and we love having them on the show whenever there's a new president. In this segment of the show, it's something a little lighter in nature. Holidays for the month, Groundhog Day, Super Bowl, National Pizza Day, Lincoln's birthday, Lithuanian Independence Day, a holiday not really celebrated that much anymore. President's Day, the 22nd, Washington's birthday. So first we're going to show you a notable land record for Samuel Lincoln. So the Lincolns originally came to America, to the town of Hingham, on a ship that arrived in 1622. So Samuel Lincoln came on the John and Dorothy, and he became a big part of the town of Hingham. He was played a role in the Old Ship's Church, and his dwelling house was on North Street, and his great-great-grandson became one of our most famous and admired presidents, Abraham Lincoln. At the time the property was deeded to Samuel Lincoln, it was actually, Hingham was part of Suffolk County. So a special thanks always to the Suffolk County Assistant Register, Tom Ryan, for getting a transcript of that for us. And if you ever go to Hingham and you go near North Street, there's a wonderful statue of Abraham Lincoln right near the Lincoln homestead. One of the Plymouth County, particularly Brockton, holidays that is now overlooked was Lithuanian Independence Day. It was always a big day for the Lithuanian community and a big day on the political calendar. It was February 16th. Lithuania is a country that actually had two different Independence Days because in both cases they separated from Russia and they declared their independence. There was a lot of Lithuanians living in Brockton, particularly in a section called the Village. And one of the most notable was a man named Admiral Fred Bakutis. He was a naval officer that commanded the naval forces at both ends of the world. He grew up in the Lithuanian Village, went to Brockton High School, then went to the United States Naval Academy. He became a very distinguished fighter pilot and then commanded the Navy on the North and South Pole. While serving in Antarctica, he named a new territory and called it Brockton, USA, Antarctica. Very well recognized at the time. As a matter of fact, at the time, Brockton Assistant City Solicitor Henry Fournette, representing at the time Mayor Jack Sims, gave a time capsule to then Commander Robert O'Doherty from Holbrook later, and that time capsule is on site in Antarctica It is scheduled to be open in 2067. So last but not least, on the county records, we went through Valentine's Day. There's a great lighthouse in Situate, Minus Ledge Light, constructed in 1860, 1 mile offshore from the town of Situate. And the flashing light for Minus Light is 143. Hence, it's always been called Lover's Light. It's built on Minus Ledge, a rocky outcropping, and it is now in private ownership. And last but not least, for this segment of the show, we always have done, since the Plymouth 400 celebration, one of our great Plymouth Colony records. And in this particular one of the passengers of the Mayflower, Stephen Hopkins, was a little reckless and had drinking parties on the Sabbath. So you can imagine the rules of how strong they were at the time, because the church was very important. It was one of the reasons the colonists came to America in the first place. So Mr. Hopkins insisted upon having these parties, and the only way they could penalize him were to fine him, and with misdemeanors, and they charged him multiple shillings. So back in those days, the penalties for violating the law were very tough. He didn't end up in the stocks, but he had to pay a pretty penny. So those are our stories for this month. I want to thank Michelle Hebsey for the great job she did here at Brockton Cable Access, for putting this show together, letting us tell our story. And we hope you have a great February. I'll see you in March, but be safe and take care.